Hello, we are CBK Gaming. We'd like to invite you to join us as we discuss suggestions for board games that can be used as educational tools through this pandemic. So, history is the first topic. There are many board games that cover historical events. Trying to pick one or several is very difficult. But what we've done is look for a game that you only need one or two players, is relatively cheap, so the price point of this is around about 35 to £40 depending where you see it. I think Zati's got it for about £45-50. We will put some links in the details below, and that game is 1066 Tears of Many Mothers. On that fateful day when Harold and William met on the field of battle and changing the outcome for the British people, the Saxons, forever. And the artwork is beautiful,
as always.
As with all of Tristan's and Hall or Nothing, the company that make this game, the artwork they produce is absolutely outstanding. And in fact, you can have a look at our review for Gloom of Kilforth, which has just been released, or our review of it has just been released.
But also, both of us grew up in the area, so certainly at school we learnt about the Battle of 1066. But what this game introduced is the build up to it as well, which I never knew about.
Yes.
And it was wonderful because I was learning new things as I was playing this game, and it's all about the build up to the battle before you then go into the actual battle itself.
Yeah, it's very, very well done. And I think there's a couple of honourable mentions as well, particularly if you want a heavier style game. Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea by GMT Games really is a great game to get into. Looking at those ancient civilizations, the Greeks, the Romans, and who doesn't want to get into sort of and the Persians? Who doesn't want to get into the and study all that sort of history, ancient history? The other one that I'd like to also suggest is
878 Vikings.
878 Viking, and another great game. And again, set in what we call the Viking Age. A good game to actually, again, teach your children, not just that, but there's the geography of England in there, so you have the full map of England and the various counties, or were the counties. I think that's a very good tool to use as a point of education. So then looking at science, and in particular the periodic table. So we've got a game called Periodic, a Game of the Elements, which is a strategy game based on the periodic table. And again, another fun and engaging way of teaching the periodic table. And we also have Museum. Museum is a game set in, or you can see our review of the game. I'll put a link in, but it's a game where you're trying to fill a museum with artifacts from around the world, and it shows those artifacts. It gives you a little bit of detail about those artifacts. And when we've played it with our friends, people have been looking at the actual cards, wondering a little bit more about, well, what is this? Where did it come from? Looking it up either on Google at the time or going away and actually reading about it. I feel that this museum encourages children and other people, adults, to take a little bit more time and invest themselves in the artifacts that are in the game, and actually go and study a little bit more.
And I've also heard today, I read an article that said some of the museums, I think it's on Google Maps, or certainly on Google, you can find the museums, and they're doing virtual tours. So you can have a play of this, look at some of sort of the beautiful antiques in this, and then go and find them in a virtual tour of where they are in the country, in the museums.
Yes, yeah. And another game that would like to make a suggestion to is Codename. Yeah. This is a fun game, but it's a word game, and a grid of words is laid out. And if you've got enough players, so you do need a few more players, although I think there is a cooperative version of the game. We'll again put some links in the details below. But it's a game where you use words and try and find links with those words.
It's word association.
Yeah, word association.
So you've got a grid of words out on the table, and it's trying to find one word that links the ones that belong to your team, but in one word. So you could say earth, and there could be ground, grass, tree, wiring, electrics. Yeah. It's getting people thinking about words and what they mean and how they relate to other words.
And there are different sorts of game as well. So there's a Marvel one, there's a Harry Potter one, there's a Disney one.
Yeah.
And I know we bought a couple of the games for our friends and their children over Christmas, and they find it very useful in that word association and increasing vocabulary. So I think that's a really good tool for children to use. There's also an honourable mention of Ticket to Ride. So there are a number of Ticket to Ride games from the UK, America, Germany, Scandinavia. So there's a fantastic way for children to interact with a map, not realise they're actually learning, and actually being able to understand places and geographical locations from the map of the world. And you can actually say that about a lot of different games. Eldritch Horror has a world map. Fortune and Glory has a world map. So there's another honourable mention I'd like to make, which is Black Orchestra, which is a great game that teaches about the assassination attempts on Adolf Hitler and the German people that actually were involved. So you can play some really interesting characters, and it teaches you about the history of Germany, and I find that's a fascinating game. Again, has the world map, shows the movement of the borders and how the war was waged,
and different stages as cards come up during it of certain points that were significant sort of marks in that time.
So again, I think a very good way of learning not only about history, about people that you wouldn't normally necessarily learn too much about in sort of certainly British school. I think you do go on if you go and study the subject a little bit more. But you can play Canaris, you can play a number of public non-military officials as well. And I've learned a lot about some of the different people who are associated with the assassination attempts on Adolf Hitler. I think that was a really interesting game. There's a number, any of these games that tell a story, they're all fantastic to use, but these are just a number of the games that we thought, if I was stuck at home due to the pandemic, what would I use to educate in a fun way? And this is just a number of those games. And I think we'd just like to say, take care. Share your games, any games and suggestions below. If you've enjoyed this, please think of liking and subscribing. And we're going to be making a number of these videos on games, best cooperative games, best competitive games, just a bit of fun, a bit of sharing our passion, but also would like to hear what other people think. What games are they going to be playing in this time where some people are isolated and small groups are isolated. Okay, stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.